Let me mute everybody. Okay. All right, guys. So I'm just going to start the class with our last session where we were talking about Java class. I have spoken about what is a class. So let me just go over it one more time. So class is a template, a real world object you can consider. Suppose we can consider it as a car or as a person. A person will have certain properties, like a person can eat, can walk, will have a name, will have a age, right? And a car can have a brand, a model, engine size, seating capacity. That's a car will have. And then from that particular blueprint, Java allows us to create n number of cars, right? So here we can see 3 cars, Volkswagen, Aston Martin, and Suzuki, and they have their own specific properties, right? And then similarly for person, we can have different person name, age, occupation, and whatnot, right? So basically that's how you can create it, and then you can create multiple different person or multiple different cars out of it. Okay, so let me quickly go through it in the program. So what I was doing last time was we were creating a student class. Okay, we created a students class. Look at this. So we created a students class where we said that this is a class named students, and these are 3 different variables. Okay, name, location, and job. That is these 3 variables that we have. You can set the properties. And then what we have created is we have created some methods. Okay, these methods are basically called as getter and setter. Okay, how can you create getters and setters? It's very simple. I'll just remove everything from here, and what I can do is I can simply go and select these 3, and then I can go to the source and then just say generate getters and setters. Okay, what exactly getters and setters are doing? It's a very simple concept. Getters and setters are simply used to let me separate this out. Just 1 minute. Let me separate this out. Okay, so what are getters and setters doing? It's a very simple thing. Getters and setters, as the name says, setting means you're setting some value inside this variable. Okay, question coming. Did you manage to fix the environmental issue with Java? No, I didn't look at it. That was just the Java C problem. We were not able to call the Java C somehow, but I have to look into it. What's going on? Oh, that's good, Rajesh. How did you do it?
I removed the Java path.
Okay.
And re-entered again because maybe there is an issue with this colon or semicolon actually.
Maybe. Okay, that's
So
good. That's
it's
good.
a pet issue.
So you're able to run Java C commands now from your command prompt.
I do, yeah.
Awesome. That's a good progress. Super. So Dipandita, you can also try the same thing. So getters and setters, as the name suggests that setting means you're setting some value inside this variable. How it is happening, let me go to the details of it later on. But you can consider these guys as some methods, okay, which will let you set the value inside these variables. How it is happening, as I said, I'll talk about this later because I have not spoken about this keyword. Okay, I have not spoken about that. I'll talk about that later on. So, and again, getter means get name. It will just return you back with the variable current value. That's it. Okay. So setting means you're setting some value inside a particular variable. Getter means you're getting the value out of it. What is it? Why the reason is? The reason is this. The reason is that in Java programming world, the best practice is to use methods or getters and setters in order to access any value from a variable. Ideally, all these variables are basically private variables. I will talk about private or access specifier in details, but for now, I will just say they are private. Private. When I'm making this private, what's happening here is that these variable values cannot be set or cannot be get from another external resource. Nobody will be able to access this directly. Nobody, right? However, the best practice is to have getters and setters, and using getters and setters, you can access these variables. You can access the variable, you can update the variable value, you can do whatever you want to do with that. But you will not be able, you should not directly access these variables from an external source. Okay, so now we have getters and setters. That's all fine. So let's try to use them in our create student class. What is this? It's a normal class again, but here we have a main method. Sorry. Now see, I am not calling. So I told you about the student class already. I also spoke about the object creation. Just give me a second. Sorry about that. So I've created a student named Vidya. It's basically an object. It's coming from, this object is created from where exactly? From the student's class. The class is having all these details, perfectly fine. I created an object. I can do that using the new keyword. I have already explained that. Now, when I create this object, I can say vidya.getName, vidya.getFromLocation, vidya.getJob. Okay. What exactly it is going to do? It is going to give me the current value of these three variables that are inside the student's class, but they are private. Now see, if I say sysout, sorry, if I say sysout, and if I say Vidya, and if I try to access the name variable directly, can I do that? I will not be able to do it. Why? Because it recognizes that there is a variable, which is why it turned blue. Okay. If there is no variable named name, then it will be in black. See that? Okay. There is no variable named NAM, nothing in there. Okay. No variable or method, no class member with the name NAM. We don't have it. But if I say NAME, it turns blue, a dark blue, which means it recognizes that there is a variable or some class member. It recognizes that. But if I hover on top of it, it says the field students.name is not visible. Why not visible? Because I made it private, right? I made it private, so it's not visible. Anyway, I'll go for the access specifier in details later on. But for now, I will just simply run this code. Right now, I will just run this code and let's see what result we get. Run as Java application. If I just do that, I will get everything null, which is quite understandable. Why? Because if I go to the student's class, I have not set any value to the three variables. I told you guys last time that when I'm creating when I'm creating a string variable and then not assigning any value to it, by default, Java will enable or will assign null to the variable. By default, it will do that. Which is why when I called the method called getName, it tried to it basically gave me the current value of the variable name, from location and job, and I got everything as null. Right now, I will try to set this up with with some value. So I'll say Vidya dot set name. Okay, and I'll just give a name in string. I'll say Vidya. Okay. By the way, set name is just a setting property. I'm just trying to set a value inside this. That guy set name method is not returning me with anything. It says void. The first line, the first word itself will tell you what exactly that method is doing. If you hover on get name method, it says the first method, first word says string, which means get name actually returns back a string value. Set name doesn't return anything. It's a void, which is why this guy println is giving me red. It says the print boolean in type print stream is not applicable to the argument void. It clearly says that I don't understand what to do. I cannot print it because this guy is not returning me anything. So I cannot print it, which is understandable. So I'm going to just simply take this out. And I'm going to take this out as well. So I did set the name Vidya. I'm going to set the other properties as well. I'll just say set from location. So dot, as soon as I said dot, it tells me what methods we have. So I say set from location. I give the location Vidya is from Madurai. So I say Madurai. And then we have set job, and I'll say actively looking, right? Actively looking, right? This is a complete student object named Vidya, right? I will just simply try to get the values out of it one more time after I set the values. Let's see what do I get. Obviously, I'll get the right values. As I said, I have got all the respected right values printed down in the console. Now let's go a little bit deeper on the, sorry, not here.
Sorry.
Go on.
If you go back to that again, please.
Yes.
Why there are two times the sysout_print?
I wanted to show you before and after setting the value.
Oh, okay. All right, great. It's going to still print null and okay, got you. Okay.
Obviously, yeah.
No.
Okay. So now, if I go back to what's happening? Okay, not this. Hold on. Here. So what's a class? I just explained what's a class. You can create multiple different objects out of it, n number of objects out of it. No problem in that. So how to create a class? Let me put this on presentation mode. Sorry, here. So creating a class is very simple. You just need to write public class car, and you're giving to flower brace, open and close flower brace. Whatever stays within that flower brace, we call it as class member. Okay. Let's move on. What are different class members we have seen? We have seen variables. We have seen methods so far. There is another type of class member called as constructor. I'll talk about them later on. Okay. That is what the class members are. They all stay within the class. Okay. Now, what is a class instance and how to create one? Okay. So as I have explained, when I'm creating, when I say the word new, right? So I said student Vidya equals new students. When I said that, what am I doing is I'm creating an instance from Java technical perspective. We call it as instance. We're creating an instance of the class. Okay. basically I'm saying that I'm creating a clone of that class, okay, an instance of the class. So the instance of the class will have the active information. Class is a template that we understand, and the instance of the class will make that class a live element. You can think about it something from that perspective. So brand, model, engine size, sitting capacity, they are all parameters, properties. I kept it in the class file, and then I'm creating instances of it and giving it a life, right? That's all. Okay, we can create the instance using new keyword. I have explained that to you. Now, how to access class members? I have also explained that to you. We call, okay, let's look at this. Car, Volkswagen, new car. This guy here, right here, Volkswagen, we call it as reference variable. I mean, these terms are very, very important. Keep it in mind, note it down, look at the videos multiple times, keep it in mind very much that these terms are very much important. So you are creating an instance. You are creating an instance of the class. Okay, the instance of the class. When you're saying that I'm creating an instance of Volkswagen, that's fine. You're creating an instance of Volkswagen. You're creating an instance of car class, but you are basically naming it as Volkswagen. But that instance is basically having all the different values, and then you are making that instance. That's fine. But when you're saying this word, car, Volkswagen, new car, we call this guy here, it's a variable. It's a variable. It's a reference variable. Okay? If you actually look into the code here, this guy here, or maybe if I go back a little bit, when I was talking about variables, fund transfer. Okay, so I spoke about primitive, non-primitive. These guys are primitive variables. Okay, I explained that to you earlier. It's a primitive variable. Fine. When I create students with their new students, this guy is a reference variable. You're referring to instance of the class that you have created. By this variable that got created, you're referring instance of the class that you have created. Please let me know if you're not understanding this. Yes, no? You're referring to the instance of the class that you have just created by the reference variable. Everybody else? Ravi, Pavan?
Let me try to understand this. Sorry. The package Java Basics assignment is the main folder.
Let me just go back. Java Basics, yeah, that's a package. That's a normal folder. Okay. Inside that there are two classes. Okay, for now think about it. There are two classes. One is called create students and one is called students. Okay, students is the class in which you have defined the template of a student. Like a student, what a student will have. A student will have a name, a location, a job. Okay.
Okay.
And then you are asking, you're going to another class, you're creating another class, and you're saying, okay, I have created a student template. This student will have a name, a location, and a job. Fine. And now I go to another class and I say, let me start creating students. That's where I say that students, I give a name. We call this guy as a reference variable. And with this keyword saying new students, I'm creating an instance of students and naming it as Vidya.
Okay. Okay.
I'm just naming it as Vidya. I'm creating an instance of students instead of student, okay? And how Vidya is different from another student? Because obviously, Vidya is having her own specific properties. So this combination is specific to Vidya. If I create another student, I can go ahead and create any number of students I want. If I say Rajesh, then Rajesh is unique instance that got created. So I just go ahead and I just say, let me copy this, please, and just replace it with Rajesh. Okay, and then this is Rajesh. I'm not sure where you're from.
From
Hyderabad. Okay, and then you're a business analyst, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we have a unique Rajesh, a unique Vidya. So Rajesh is totally a different guy from Vidya. Make sense? I have created another instance of student. I named it as Rajesh. I've created an instance of student. I named it as Vidya.
So can the line 21 be in line 8? Is that okay? Is that possible?
Yeah, absolutely. Why not?
Okay.
Nothing to do with where you're keeping these lines.
Okay.
After Vidya, Rajesh got created. No problem at all. You can.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's fine.
One question I have.
Yeah.
In the previous tab, that students.java class,
Okay.
in the previous tab, okay, we have declared the class, the class, no, not the class. Yeah, this is the class only, right? The private, okay. The access modifier we have given as private.
Yeah, this guys.
Yeah, the string name private, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So in that in that reference object class that creates students with Java, we are creating one object called Vidya and Rajesh, and
Mm-hmm.
as those are private, okay, in the previous step. So using the get name and set name, can we access those private variables?
That's what we did, right? We are using setters
Okay,
to set the values,
okay,
and we're using getters to get the values. We're doing the same.
okay. So using getter and setter, we can access the private variables.
Yes, you can.
Okay, okay.
So now we have just got the Rajesh created, and I've given some name to it, and then I just simply go ahead and do these because I want to access the information that has been supplied to Rajesh. And now I will just go ahead and print it.
1 minute.
Yeah, go on.
So we have given the setter and getter as public, so that's why we can able to access.
Access,
Even though
right.
we have given that when we are initiating the strings in student class as private,
Yeah,
we have given as a setter and getter as public, so that only we can able to access, right?
that's right. That's right. The reason for that is it is not a good practice to let your variable be directly accessed from another entity. It's not a good practice in Java, which is why we always try to get it done through a getter and setter. Because you have methods now, because I've created methods now, now I've made all these methods that's public, but later on you will see that we can actually make these methods protected, so which means only certain classes will have the capability to set the value. Not everybody will have the capability. You will be able to get the value from everywhere. Setting only done from sources, which I will explain that later on. But for now, I kept everything as public just to make sure or make you guys understand that it is not a test to directly access the variables from another class. You make them private, variables you make them private, and then you access it through a getter or setter. Getter and setters, yeah.
Thank you.
Good stuff. So now that we have create students and okay, we have this much. Okay, let's go to the program here. Okay, one more time. This guy is a reference variable. So we have created the instance of car, and we are referring the instance of car with the name Volkswagen. Okay, and then Volkswagen is having brand, model, in size, and sitting capacity. Okay, that's with the access, and we access it through dot operator. In the example here, look at this. In the example here, actually I have not called the method get brand or set brand. I didn't call that. I actually directly called the variables. You can do it, but from best practice perspective, it is not a good. It's not the right thing to do. Okay, you should not directly access a variable. You should access a variable through a method. Okay, which is what I showed you. Let's move on to the next. Just give me a second. I will have to little bit fix this. I don't know.
So in this case, the students.java is a method, am I right?
Students.java. Sorry, students.java is not a method. It's a class.
It's a class. Okay. Okay.
Okay, just give me a minute. Let me just check one. Right. So, where am I? Okay. Students, everything here, I explained this to you earlier, that the name of the file and the class name should be same. When you're creating a class, the name of the file, the .java file, and the class should be same. Okay. Create students and the name of the class is also create students. It should be understandable. A class, okay? You give a name and you're giving a scope. You're creating scope from brace to a brace right here. Okay, that is the end point, starting point and end point of a class. Okay, getting a question. Sorry, Rajesh, what disturbance?
I'm not able to hear you properly.
Voice is breaking, so weak little bit here and there.
It's breaking, is it? Let me just switch my position. Okay, let me know if you are still able to hear the same problem.
That's better. Yeah.
Is it better now? Okay. All right. So now, just 1 second. Okay. So now we have, where is it? Okay. What I was talking about? I was talking about the class. So I created a class named create students. You can see the name of the class because it comes with a keyword called class, and then there is a scope, start and end. Whatever is between the class is a class member, whether it is a main method, whether it is a normal variable. Just give me a minute. Okay, so whether it is a member, a class member, or whether it is a method, or whether it is a constructor, whatever it is, it's a class member.
Okay.
Is that clear, Rajesh?
Yeah, got it.
Okay, so now this part, which I'm going to explain now, is a very, very important thing to look at. Okay, so let's see. Okay, understanding Java objects and memory management. This is a very, very important thing that you should be understanding. Okay, there are two types of memory section. There are many different memory section in Java virtual machine, but there are two different memory section which are very important to understand. One is called stack and heap. Okay, stack holds all the methods that are in execution. So let's look at the first method from create students perspective. So we have this particular create students class. I have told you that when we start executing a Java program, JVM looks for a main method in this particular format, saying public static void main, in parameters an array of arguments, array of strings, right? That is the same signature Java virtual machine looks for. So once it finds that, okay, it triggers and it tries to execute whatever is there inside the main method line by line. Okay, so when a main method starts getting executed, what JVM will do is JVM will put the main method inside a section in Java virtual machine, and it's called as stack memory. Okay, so you see the first frame here is main. Okay, inside the main I have two different variables. One is a normal variable that holds a value called name. Another one is a reference variable. Car is a class and Volkswagen is a reference variable. If you look at this, so car, Volkswagen, new car. So car is a reference, Volkswagen is a reference variable, and on top of the Volkswagen, there is maybe a name variable. If I want to actually put this to a program, let me try to do that. I will create a new class and I will make this class as car. Okay, I want to do this because I want to keep it same to what example I'm giving. So this is my variables. Okay, and then I'm going to say that what are the things that I need? What are the things that I need? I need a brand, model, engine size, sitting capacity. So I'll say string brand, string model, string float engine, and then we have seat, int seat. That's it. These are four different stuff that we have here. Okay, I'm going to generate getters and setters for it. Source, getters and setters ready. Okay, just 1 minute. Select all and generate. Okay, so I got all of them there. Just copy this piece and paste it here. So that's my methods, that's my variables, and that's my method, or getters and setters. It's a method at the end of the day. So once I have this, and I will make this guys private so that I cannot access them directly from any reference variable. Using a reference variable from an external entity, I will not be able to do that. So private, all private. So we have this guys ready, totally fine. Now I'm going to create a class and say generate cars. Okay, generate cars with the main method, finish, perfect. And then I give a variable here. I don't know, let's give it a variable called int number, or okay, let's do this. Number of cars. Okay, let's set this to 0. Okay, that's the main method, perfectly fine. Let's create an object of or instance of car, and let's name it as Volkswagen. So car Volkswagen and new car, and that's pretty much about it. I just created a reference, a variable of car, and then what do? I just say this guy dot I want to set some value, right? Set brand, give a brand. So Volkswagen, I'm giving it as a name, as a string, and then let me give other stuff like set model, and the model is Golf. Engine is not get engine, the set engine. Dot set engine is 1.5. Okay. By looking at this, Pavan, if you know the answer, don't tell. By looking at this error, can you tell me why am I getting this problem? The method setEngineFloat in type car is not applicable for the arguments double. Why am I getting this error?
F, right? Float.
Okay. So Vidya says float. Yeah, it is. So it has to be F, right? Good stuff. So I'll keep it F. Perfect. And then we have another one saying seating capacity. Seating set seat. I'll give seat of 5. That's my car object. Okay. Named as Volkswagen. The reference variable is Volkswagen. We have created an instance of car. Good. So now let's look at the explanation here. So the first thing is main. Look at the main section. We have created a car Volkswagen, that is a reference variable. Just above that, there is a string name. In our case here, it is not a string name, it is an int number of cars. Okay. So you see that there is a variable called int number of cars. Just think about, consider it to be int number of cars. And then there is a reference variable. Okay. These two guys are part of main for now. Okay. Now, what happens is I have called a method. Let me just do this.
So
this is the exact situation.
Sorry.
Yeah, go on.
If you go to the cars.
Or you want to go to the cars? Okay.
Yeah.
So just a minute. That's my car. Okay.
No. Where is the gun?
Generate cars.
What is the gun? Did you just delete that?
This one, yeah.
Yeah. Why
Okay.
why is it set engine 1.5? Why can't be int?
Because it's a decimal. Integer is not decimal, right?
Oh, float. Okay. All right.
Integer is
Okay.
a whole number.
You said that. Yeah. I got
Okay,
it. All right. Thanks.
no problem. So now, this is the situation here, right? Int number of cars, Volkswagen, new car, right? If I actually go back to the program, I mean the slide, this is exactly the same position right now. Main, there is a car Volkswagen, and then we have string name, okay? Now, we added a method, this method. What method? Set brand. It's a method which is getting called through a reference variable. It's a method at the end of the day that is getting called. Okay, so first think about it from the method execution perspective. So the first first method that is getting executed by JVM is main, right? After that, the next method that JVM will execute is set brand. And what JVM will do is it will stack it one after another in the stack memory. Okay, first is main, so that goes to the bottom. Let me know if you're able to hear me out loud and clear, or it's breaking. Is it breaking, guys?
It did for 30 seconds and it's okay now.
Whoa.
Okay. Okay. Right. So this is a stack memory. The first method call was for main, so that goes to the bottom. Okay. The second method call in our case right now is set brand, that just stacks up above the main method. Okay, and it is doing some job there. Okay, what is happening here in this section is a LIFO. LIFO means last in, first out. Okay, that's what is happening. Last in, first out. So which means the guy which is set seat is the last in inside the stack memory. Once the execution is done, it gets out of the stack memory location. I'm just trying to show you what happens behind the scene when you are executing these methods or these objects. When you're executing the main method and whatever you are creating, like object, reference variable, how exactly it gets executed in the background is what I'm trying to show you in the PPT here, right? So that's the stack memory up there. It's a last in, first out, one after another. Every one of them gets executed and then goes out of the stack memory, last in, first out. Okay. So now the point is that there is another type of memory, and that memory is called as heap memory. Now let's consider it from the object creation perspective. Object creation perspective, right? So let's look at the first line here. Car, Volkswagen, new car. Look at the color. Okay, it is purple blue kind of. So as soon as I actually created this particular line here saying new car, an object of car, an instance of car got created, and then you have entered some information. You have entered a brand, model, engine, seating capacity. Come on. Okay, you have just entered all this information inside for that particular object, for that particular instance that got created in the first line. What you did then is this. You created a car, Volkswagen new car. Okay, now what did I do? I am again saying Volkswagen equals new car. You see that? I first created a car, Volkswagen new car, entered some value for this particular instance. So this instance is now unique with certain values. All good? But then in line number 15, I planned to create another Volkswagen instance, a car instance with the same name. Please stress on the word same name. Volkswagen, Volkswagen. Both the reference variable are named same. Okay? Just see what happens now. What happens is this. I created Volkswagen new car. As soon as I did that, orange color object got created. And for example, you can think that you have entered some value there. Okay, as well, in the same method. Okay, some value there. And here I'm giving some other information, maybe 1.6, maybe 6 sitting capacity. I just did that. Now what happened with that is, as soon as I did that, what happened with this situation is, the previous object is now nowhere, because as I said earlier, that these are reference variables. So you are creating, thinking about it, you're creating an instance of the car. You're creating an instance of the car with a reference variable and with a name called Volkswagen, which is a reference variable. You're referring to the instance of the car, and the name of that reference is Volkswagen. Again, you're creating an instance of the car, you're referring to that instance of the car using a reference variable, and the name of the reference variable is Volkswagen. You're simply pointing to an instance of the car. Okay, now by doing that, what's happening here is, now because you created a new Volkswagen, another memory location is allocated to that reference variable, to that instance of the car. And the old instance is now no longer valid. Does that make sense? What happens then is, when it is no longer valid, then there is a background concept called as garbage collector. Okay, JVM handles that. You don't have to bother about it. Why am I saying all these? Because if you're going for an interview, it's highly likely that they can ask you to explain how does JVM works. What is a heap and a stack memory? It's a very, very common question. And you have to explain them the way I'm explaining it to you. Okay, so what happens is, the old object is having no more reference at all, because the second object that you created called Volkswagen just simply took another place, and the old place is now not pointing anywhere. So the blue guy is going to be killed or taken out of the memory using garbage collection or garbage collector.
Will it be overwritten or?
No, it will not overwrite. So as I said, you see, I've created different memory location. That's a heap memory. So blue guy's location and orange guy's location are different locations, right? They are into different location. It will not be overridden. That instance will be totally out of the memory. It'll go out of the memory. That particular location that was allocated with these values will be out of the memory, totally gone. Okay, and the new object that you have just created here in line number 15 is going to have the latest reference with the latest values. It is not overridden.
So like in truncate then.
You can say it's a truncate, yeah. It takes out. So who does that? Garbage collection does that. Who calls garbage collection? JVM does that. JVM calls garbage collector and says, okay, there are some unused objects where I don't see any mapping, so take them out. So every now and then, garbage collection gets triggered by JVM, takes out everything out of the memory. Make sense? Everybody, makes sense?
Yeah.
Yes, no? Yes, no, guys? Shantanu, Ravi, Pavan.
Yeah, just a quick. This might be a stupid question, but what if you wanted to make a Java program of like say like five or different like call a Java program of like say like five different golf cars. So like so how would you do that?
You have to give different reference name.
So like it's like five different Okay, okay.
Yeah, so like that's the reason why I have just created another instance of the car and named it as Aston Martin. You can give another golf. You can give another golf 1, golf 2, golf 3. Do that.
Okay, yeah, perfect.
They will
Thanks.
create different. They will be created in different locations in the heap
Okay.
memory.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Yeah, good. And let me then check. Okay, so everybody understood? Pavan, you have any questions? Okay, if I have it. Okay, sure, Pavan, no problem. That's okay. All right. So that's with the JVM part. Okay. What are methods and its usage? Okay, now we will understand what are methods and why it is used. So in programming language, we work on dry principle. Dry means do not repeat yourself. Okay, this can be achieved by constructing a method and then calling that method as many as times required. Okay, so for example, I am here. I've created a method called setEngine. Okay, now this method I can then call n number of times. Okay, and it will exactly do the same thing for me. Instead of going to the card and performing this action called setEngine, this engine equals new engine. This is a one-liner. That's fine. This doesn't really make sense, or this doesn't really make much of a difference. But I'm talking about scenarios where you have a bunch of statements. You have a complex scenario or complex use case where you are, suppose, let me explain this. So for example, you are having a file. A file means Excel file. You're reading some data out of the Excel file. You're processing it, and then you're getting some output out of it. Okay. So this whole thing can be wrapped inside a method, and in the method you can then simply pass on the information that what exactly you want to do with the Excel file, and the method will be always executing the same steps, whatever is there within the method that you have described. So for example, if you remember, I created this var args. Where is that? In the last class only I did it, right? Not here. Operators, loops, var args, right? In the var args, what did I do? I created a method, okay? Method saying add numbers. And I told the method that, okay, this guy will accept an array of numbers, okay? An array of numbers. And then this method was created in order to do what? Just sum up all the numbers and print me or get me an information of the total summation of all the numbers that you're supplying inside the method. That's the method is supposed to be. That's what the method is doing. I mean, this particular method is doing is designed to basically add all the numbers that you are sending at it. That's all, right? So, in a nutshell, when you are seeing that the program that you are writing is not a one-time use, which means you are writing a program that you can foresee that it can be used multiple times. Very simple understanding. When you're creating a function, when you're creating a step, okay, not a one-liner step, obviously. I'm saying which is having some significant complex situation that you're handling, right? And you know that this complex situation that you're handling, you're not going to only handle it in one place in the project, but you're going to handle it multiple times. Then you will create a method, okay? You will put all the information there in the method, that in the steps that you have designed inside that method, and then you will call that method n number of times, how many ever times you want, from different locations. That is called do not repeat yourself principle. Obviously, it will not be acceptable if you are doing that with a one-liner. Okay, it works well, or it basically does the job right if you are trying to work it out with a complex situation or a complex algorithm, right? So that's basically a method. So here, what I've tried to show you is a main method. Inside that main method, I have just added these two values, Volkswagen and Golf, and then I have said print brand name, update sitting capacity, and get model name, right? So print brand name just prints the brand name. Yeah, it is a one-liner, but I wanted to show you how a method looks like. So you're just saying, so there are three types of methods which I'm trying to show you here to see this, okay? It says a method, this is a normal method where you're saying print the brand name. This guy is just there to print the brand name and nothing more than that. Ideally, in normal situation, we don't create a single liner method. We don't do that. It doesn't make sense. We don't do that, okay? Then we have another method which is called get model, and get model name is returning back with some kind of an information. That's why you have another keyword called return. Method that returns a value. Method to execute a statement. Okay? Method that returns a value. When you're returning a value, you are giving some information. What information? What exactly it is returning back with. You're saying that it is returning back with a string type of value, and that is defined here. So you're creating a method saying public string. So instead of void, void means this method print brand name doesn't return anything. So you're saying void, right? But when a method returns something, so you know that get model name is returning me back with a string. So you say public string get model name, and then you say return model. So it is just returning back with a string value for model variable. Okay, and then we have update sitting capacity. So this method is doing what? It is simply accepting an argument. This section out here in the brackets, we call it as argument or parameters. You're using the argument or parameters, and then you're using that information inside the method. So you see, again, every method is having a scope, a flower base starting, a flower base ending. Whatever is between is called the scope. So the scope, this is the scope of the print brand method This is the scope of the get model name method. This is the scope of update sitting capacity method. And this method is having an argument. You're supplying an argument inside the method, and then this method is doing what? It is simply replacing the old value of sitting capacity with the new value, because the seats, the integer value that you're going to supply inside the update sitting capacity will simply update the current value of sitting capacity integer. That's all. So 3 type of methods. We will talk much more about methods in future, but I'm just trying to give you some basic understanding of what is a method, because I'm right now trying to go into a situation where I can show you something from Selenium. Okay. So this is called methods, right? A normal method that can simply execute a statement, a method that can execute a statement and also return some value out of it, which is get model name. You can return the value using the keyword called return. And then we have update sitting capacity, which will accept some information from using an argument and then use that argument inside the method to perform something. Okay, so that's that. Any questions with method? I know, I mean, this is not the complete information yet regarding methods. There are a lot many to come. We will do every one of these sections separately. But for now, from this particular slide, do you have any other question? Any questions, guys? No, yes. I'm waiting. Hello? Okay. Others? Okay. Good. So now that we understand a little bit of what is method is, I'm going to go to the next slide. Understanding scope. Okay. So let's look at the scope section. Okay. A car class is created, and you have created some Can you hear me, guys? Yeah, you can hear me. All right. So we have some properties here. String, brand, model, engine size, capacity. These are the variables. The section that is just below the class car line over here, where I'm pointing right now, is called as global scope. Whatever variables you are keeping here in this global scope that is on the very top of the class car. Can you hear me? Yes, no? Okay. So somebody is not in mute. Okay. So now, whatever we have it here on the top is called as global scope, which means what? Which means the variables that you have created here will be accessible to any other class members. Make sense? Whatever you're creating here on the top will be accessible to any other class members. Okay, so this brand can be, our sitting capacity can be accessible to update sitting capacity method. Downgrade sitting capacity can be accessible to, I mean, in this method also, you can access sitting capacity. Everywhere you can access sitting capacity or any other method. So let me just explain this to you with a right example. I'll go back to my car class. Okay. Now, you see that you have the brand, right? This is in the global scope. I'll just make it clear here. This is a global scope, right? The brand that I created here now can be accessed actually in any one of these sub methods. These methods are now a part of the class car. They are the member variables, or the members, class members. They are the member variables. And even though they are private, there is no problem. I can still actually access them anywhere. So brand is already accessed here in get brand method. I can actually access them in get model equals something ABC. Let's try to show you that you can do that. Set model brand ABC, and then engine, and then engine, okay, just giving random stuff, and so on and so forth. So which means the guy that you have declared here, all these guys that you have declared here, can be accessible to anybody in the class member. Okay. So now that we understand this global scope, what is a local scope? Local scope is something different. So which means if I am creating a variable here saying float engine eng equals 1.9f or 2.2f. If I say that here, this guy is a local scope, which means what? Which means all the variables, none of the variables or any other class member or the class itself will not have access to this variable. This is a local scope. Let's try to access this guy in some other methods, and let's try to give some right value to it. So I'll say 1.5f, and I'll say 1.6f, so on and so forth. And I am straight away shown with an error that this guy eng doesn't exist. It says cannot be resolved to a variable, which means it doesn't exist. So which means in a method, when you're creating a variable that remains within that method, and that is called a scope, a local scope. When we talk later on about constructor, which is also does look similar to like a method, you will see that they will also have their own local scope. So everybody is having different scopes, global scope and local scope. Any questions on that? Any questions, guys? No questions? Yes, no? Any questions, guys? Okay. Perfect. So then I go back to the next. Okay, no questions. Let's talk about Selenium now. Okay. What is Selenium? Selenium is a free open source tool that helps us to perform browser level activities like navigating to a web page, enter user information, clicking on any kind of web component, selecting a value from a drop-down. Everything can be done through this open source tool. This was built by a guy named Jason in 2004, and it was done in ThoughtWorks. Okay, they were working on a web application that required frequent testing, and they thought that let's make an automation tool named Selenium, and now it's in huge demand. So Selenium is basically available in 3 different flavors. One is called Selenium IDE. So this is a Firefox add-on. Okay, it is basically an add-on to your Firefox browser, and then you can basically perform a record and play with it. So I can show that to you. I'll go to Firefox, and let me see if I have it. I'm going to install the add-on to the Firefox. I'll go to add-ons, and here I'm going to search, say, Selenium. So I get the guy called Selenium IDE. Okay. And add to Firefox. Okay, it's downloading. Okay, it's done. So this is my Selenium IDE icon, right? So let's try to go to any website. So for example, let us go to Amazon. Amazon.co.uk. So ideally, actually, we can do this. Let me check this out. So I will, if I have to write a automation test using Selenium IDE, I will switch on the IDE. Okay. Record a new test in a new project. I will select that. Okay. Give a name to the project, saying WizQA sample. Okay. Click on OK now. What is the base URL? My base URL is this, amazon.co.uk. Start recording. It opens up the amazon.co.uk for me immediately. And then what do? Is I enter some information. What information is that? I need to buy a phone. So let us go ahead and select where is the phone, guys? No. Okay, let's try this. 1 plus 70. Okay, so I just search for OnePlus 7 Pro, and it is returning me back with some information. It doesn't match to the computer accessories. It should be a phone. No, I don't see it. Okay, so that's fine. So I just recorded a test. Okay, so you see on the bottom it says Selenium IDE is recording. I'm going to stop the recording and I say stop. Yeah, I think it stopped. No? Just a minute. Let me close this guy. Pseudonym ID. Okay. Why it is not stopping? Firefox. Okay, let me close this. Okay. So I'm going to give the name of my test, saying sample test. And that's pretty much about it. It's a normal, simple test. How do I run it? I click on it and I say play. It opens up this guy here. And let's see if it does everything. Okay. It just cleared the first line. That's fine. But trying to find the CSS and it's not able to find it. Okay, and it says it's a timeout. So ideally what's happening here is that, yeah, go on, Liliana, what's your question? Okay. So now what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to record a test. That
Is this IDE or a WebDriver? Sorry.
no, this is IDE. It's called IDE. It's a simple record and play tool. So if you actually see this guy, it has recorded all these steps. Okay. And then if I play it, it simply tries to run through that. Set window size. Let us set the window size to something else. Oh no, that's a step. So target one. Oops. Target 1080 into 720.
What are you doing?
And that's my steps. And then once I have it here, I'm going to play it. Let's run. Is it already running something in Firefox? Okay. Yeah, it's running somewhere.
Can we terminate the whole Selenium and rerun again? No. It'll save
I'm sorry.
It'll
I'm
save
sorry,
the
what?
project, yeah?
Yeah, I did save the project. Just 1 minute. I think it's running somewhere. So pause and debugger. Let me stop it and start the run again. Okay. Okay. sample test was aborted. So it's trying to find this particular element here, CSS element. Somehow it's not able to find it, and it's just trying to close the test. But the idea is this. The idea is that it's a simple record and play steps tool where you record some steps one after another, and then you just trigger the run. It just triggers it again, right, for you. But this tool that we have is, it has a lot of issues. The first problem is it is a Firefox add-on, which means your tests are pretty much dependent on one browser, and that is not what any application will want. They want to run the tests on Chrome, Firefox, Safari, and other different browsers, but that doesn't happen with Selenium IDE. Okay, so that's one problem. Okay, second problem is it's not maintainable. Think about it. You're recording and playing steps. So for every different, I just spoke about dry principle. Do not repeat yourself. But with the record play, you will have to actually repeat yourself over and over again, because every test will be unique, and the concept of method and then reusing them in different places will not even exist, because every test case will be unique. You cannot say that a bunch of steps are going to me and use it in test. It will not work out like that. So it's fairly a system which will kind of give you an understanding what automation testing looks like, and that's pretty much about it. That's pretty much about it. So that's the Selenium IDE, which we still have in Firefox, but nobody uses that. Then we have WebDriver. That is something that we will be using it extensively. So this is used to create extensive automated test scripts that can be customized as per the project requirement. Yes. So you can basically create a framework using Java, and there are different tools like Jenkins, TestNG, which works as a test runner. It basically runs the test another, and that is where it's called. I mean, that's where the Cerebral comes in picture, because it's a Java-based API or a library that helps you to automate the. It gives you much more optimization. Okay. Is it? I don't know. Sometimes the net is a little bit weird. Okay. And then we have Selenium Grid. Okay. Selenium Grid basically requires you to, I mean, helps you. Oh. Okay. Still breaking, guys? Yes, no? Hello? Still breaking? Okay. All right. So we have three things. One is IDE, which is a record and play tool. I just explained that to you. Then we have Selenium WebDriver, which is something that we will be using extensively in order to create customized test cases. Okay. And then we have Selenium Grid. Grid is what? Grid is basically used in order to execute tests in parallel. Why we need to run tests in parallel? Because we want to get to know the situation of the test or the application sooner. Okay, so which is why if you're running them in parallel, suppose you're running in 16 different, you're running them in a 16 different parallel execution. If you can do that, what will happen is your total execution time will cut short a lot. So which is why parallel execution is very much important, and that is something that we will be learning later on, how to write test cases so that it can be executed parallelly. So we will get it done through the framework implementation and all, right? These are 3 different flavors of Selenium that you should be concerned about. So now that we understand what is Selenium a little bit, let us try to understand how Selenium works. Okay, so on the extreme left, we have our test written in Java. Okay, we will show you how a test looks like in Java, but later on. In the middle, we have WebDriver, which is the library, which I will show you now how to import that, download that, and import that in our project. So that's WebDriver. And the third, the right side, extreme right, we have browser, the actual browser where the application will be launched. So now that we understand what is Selenium, let's try to understand how exactly the client or the test case interacts with the WebDriver. Okay, so WebDriver basically opens up a REST API endpoint. What does that mean? REST API endpoint. So let me try to put this to you in a proper way. I was actually explaining this to somebody a few days back. So REST endpoint, right? So what exactly is REST endpoint? Think about it that this is a server. This is a server, just a server. There is no UI element to it. Okay. This server is created to perform some mathematical calculation. Mathematical calculation. Oh. That is what a mathematical calculation. I mean, we have a server that is performing mathematical calculation. There is no UI component to it. Okay, this just calculates and gives you the result. That's it. So I'm just giving a very simple example. Okay, so let's look at something like add n numbers. Okay, that's a method. Okay, and then we have calculate what? Calculate HCF. What do you call that HCF? HCF is higher common factor, something like that. Highest common factor, something like that, right? So calculate HCF. It's another method. So what you have done is you have created a server here. Okay, and you told the world, you have told everybody that you have created a server. You name that server as mathematical calculation, and this server is open to public. Anybody can access the server. Anybody can access the server and then pass on some information to the server and then get the result out of it. So for example, adding n numbers. What information that you want to pass on to it? Obviously, you want to pass on to it is an array of numbers. So an array of numbers. So you can say 23, 45, 67, 89, 34, Okay, there are different numbers. That you're trying to supply to this particular server. Okay, this server is having a method called add numbers. You're calling that method add numbers, supplying this information and getting a result back. That's all. So now this is a web. So this is basically a server, or we can call this as a web services. Okay, we call this as a web services endpoint. Web services endpoint. Endpoint basically means exposed URL. Exposed. Let me URL. So web services endpoint is basically an exposed URL, publicly available. Anybody can go in and call the methods, add number, add HCF, calculate HCF, whatever, and then it returns you back with a result. So similarly, what we have here from WebDriver is this. Okay, it's a REST API endpoint. Okay, when I say REST API endpoint, REST basically works on certain kind of principle, and they are called as put, post, delete, update. Okay, put means what? Put is basically you are creating some kind of a, oh, another one, get, right? So put is something like you're creating a new information
Is it
inside
like
the
DML and DDL? Like
exactly, but much higher level, right? Okay.
sounds like same.
Yeah, it kind of looks same, but ideally what happens is REST, the one that I'm talking about, REST is called as, wait a minute, what is the abbreviation? Some state transfer. Let me just show you REST abbreviation, right? Yeah, representational state transfer. Okay, this is a web services endpoint that gets opened up, right? And then what happens is that it waits there, server kind of waits there and tries to listen to any kind of requests that are coming at it. So when the request comes to it, it comes in different formats. So the one of the format which I'm trying to explain it to you here is basically put, post, delete, update, get, right? So when you say put, you're basically trying to create a new information. When you're updating it, you're trying to update some information. When you're getting it, you're just trying to get some information, delete it, right? Something like that. So all these different, I will go through all of these in details when the REST API REST API module comes in. But for now, just think about it that we are trying to perform some DML operation inside a server, and we call that server as a web services server, which is opened and is basically trying to listen to any kind of command that are coming to it, right? So that is basically REST. Now look at the diagram here. So WebDriver is a API or a REST endpoint, which is active and which is trying to listen to some events. Okay, what is the event? So when you're trying to execute a test, you're trying to call a method called .navigate or .get. Okay, so this particular method, say .get or .navigate, is then interpreted as a REST event by the WebDriver. WebDriver then passes on to the browser, and then browser performs that action in the browser, returns back with a response stating whether the event that was supplied from WebDriver was a success or a failure, and that response again comes back to the test from where you triggered your test, more or less, right? That is what is how Selenium works. So Selenium WebDriver opens up a REST endpoint, waits for any kind of requests that are coming in. As soon as the request comes in, it tries to pass on the request to the browser, and browser then performs it, responses back with the status code.
So the browser is the UI. It uses the WebDriver.
No. Browser don't uses the WebDriver. WebDriver sits in between the test and the browser.
Okay, that's the media.
That's the media, exactly.
So between the WebDriver and the test, it uses the REST API.
No.
I'm trying to understand this.
No. WebDriver opens up a REST API endpoint. Okay? WebDriver opens up a REST API endpoint, which means it opens up a server and it listens to any kind of event that is coming towards it. The events are thrown by whom? It's thrown by the test itself. Like .click, .send keys, .navigate, .get. These are all different events that are sent by the test itself to the WebDriver. Okay. Now the WebDriver will understand that event and will pass it on to the browser. Just a minute. In the browser, it again performs that action and responses back with the status code. If it's a successful response, browser will give you 200. If it's a negative response, browser will give you 400. And that's how your test will know that this particular scenario was a failure, or this particular situation was failure, and then he will understand how to fix that. So the form in which the test makes the event or fires the event towards the WebDriver is done through JSON. What is JSON? JSON is basically another way to handle or to send information between two different entities. So it's called JavaScript Object Notation, JSON, JSON. Okay. So we have JSON, and if I actually show you how does JSON looks like, if I take it to the images, okay, let's call it a day, guys. I'll come back to this diagram tomorrow again, and then we will try to understand this one more time in a better way. It's also late night, so let's call it a day, and then whatever I spoke to you about regarding the object creation and memory management, I hope you understood that. And yeah. So can you please confirm me that you understood the memory management part? Okay. Rajesh, you also understood that. Okay. Good stuff. No problem at all. That's fine. We'll come back to it tomorrow. Good stuff. Yeah. Okay. Bye.